Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tarnished Bronze. This morning is a fantastic morning because it's free comic book day. Hopefully, you've picked up your stuff, you've got some books signed, you've got some artwork, or whatever your comic shop is doing today. And I thought for this glorious occasion that we would just be living La Vida Liefeld and looking at the very recent Deluxe reissue of Youngblood 1 by, the one and only Rob Liefeld, ably abetted by Joe Casey. Now, my first Rob Liefeld is probably Darker Image 1. I think that's got the kind of Lobo sort of ripoff, which is Blood Wolf. And it's actually all the stories in that are fantastic. There's a Max story, and there's Jim Lee doing a kind of Sin City Frank Miller riff with Deathblow. So that's a really good issue. Obviously, that's over 30 years old, and obviously, issue 2 hasn't come out yet. So Rob, get on it. I want your portion of Darker Image number 2 coming out soon. Um, Full disclosure, I'm a bit of a fan of Rob. I think perhaps his late '90s, not obviously his Captain America work, but the sort of fill-in issues he was doing in the X universe and Cable in the late '90s and early 2000s, I think, is a peak for me. It's really well done. It's sort of circa the Hunt for Xavier, and what is it? The Age of Apocalypse and the Gathering of the 12 might be the pinnacle or peak Rob, as the kids say. But I must admit, I do enjoy his recent Blood Force thing and the Deadpool stuff that he's doing. This issue is scripted by Joe Casey, who did a lot of things in the X-verse as well. Did some Deadpool, very, very capable scripter. Now, this presentation is the two flip books sort of interweave together. So the deluxe edition it's obviously re-scripted and re-lettered. We don't have Hank Canals doing his stream of consciousness dialogue anymore. And it does make the story run pretty well. So for my money, the prologue is the best part of this. I don't know if it's been substantially redrawn and recolored, but it is really good. And we get Kirby, we get some of the characters who aren't named. So one of the problems with this is you've got three stories going on at once, and there's three stories with ensemble casts, and it's really hard to keep track of who everyone looks like. But everything nonetheless does look really cool. So even just here, we've got our sort of Cable-esque fella. We've got the woman with the sort of Polaris hair and the prophet face mask. We've got a feral-looking guy with some awesome shoulder blades. It's all happening here. We've got another sort of Jean Grey-esque person, and we've got these sort of dark sidey villains and alien villains as well. The prologue is kind of like where it really ticks. I think, some real energy just sort of crackles on this. And obviously we're getting pouches up the yin yang and everything that we love, the high-waisted belts, the absurd sort of head, but everything does look pretty cool. I just for the prologue, I want more of these weirdos. I want more of the Darkthorn sort of verse. I want them coming in more. Then the next of the three sort of teams, there's a little bit of backstory here. I'm not sure when I read the original issues if that backstory is necessarily conveyed. But Shaft is former FBI. He's the sort of Hawkeye. He's the guy who just basically killed someone by flinging a pen at them. And we can see the ramifications on this right-hand page here. But, Rob is really trying to get his sort of every man and the girl next door thing going on. I must admit, I do like the high-waisted yoga pants with the cut off jacket or the bomber jacket. That is a fun look for her. Although everyone's hair just looks like some version of Shatterstar, which your mileage might vary. But I can't draw hair very well, so who am I? Who am I to judge? And Patrick has previously said on the channel that Rob does good hair. So that's something, Rob. So Rob, if you're listening, Patrick really likes the hair. Keep it up. For some reason, we get these vignettes and there's some humor, like we see Chapel. Obviously, his girlfriend for the night there just really wants him to put on the Youngblood uniform. We get some just weird stuff happening. I'm just blanking on who the character is there and what her power set are. It's kind of intriguing, kind of curious. I imagine it was even more obscure and inscrutable in the original version. So I've just blown it up here. It's not a bad panel. It's a pretty typical Rob Liefeld panel. And again, another page, a whole nother team. We've got some sort of Asgardian looking guys. We've got another sort of paramilitary person, but who's not diehard. I think we've got Riptide in the bottom left there. And someone who I originally thought was the wolf guy in the very early thing with the shoulder pads. This might be Cougar with the Nate grey or the cable grey through his hair. So just all sorts of things are happening. And then for some reason, there's also paratroopers with no parachutes leaping out of these helicopters as well in the background. I think this is some sort of Iraq-based attack, and I'm sure it will be further explored here and also in issues 2 and 3. But I just think there's a little bit too much happening in some of these things, and I wasn't sure if this was just a really massive person or if it was an entirely different panel. I think everything just looks a little bit askew. But that's what you get with Rob. I mean, these people, the thing that I will say about it is it all looks cool. I just don't really know what's going on. And then there's that sort of like irreality to it. Like none of this could possibly happen in the real world. And, this is art from 30 years ago. I think Rob has come a long way since then. And the other thing about this comic is it's putting bums on seats. So this is maybe the 5th or 6th version of Youngblood 1 being issued. I don't know any other comics that have really like had so many remixes and reissues. So good luck to him. Yeah, but great team shots again. This top left-hand corner. I mean, you can tell why allegedly Marvel gave him or Bob Harris gave him a special deal for his characters because he does make characters look cool, and with the right people around him, like they can tell some great stories. So there's Bad Rock and Chapel and Die Hard. And is it Vixen? I can never tell. Shaft. That's another guy with the flames on his head. Who knows? But it's all happening. Some great character moments. So if this issue was just allowed to breathe a little bit more rather than being that breathless action, I think it would really help with the storytelling. But we've really got here enough characters, and I don't know who this guy is. Maybe he's the guy with the huge hat from before. I think he almost definitely is. Another cool panel, with the Rob Liefeld action, the Rob Liefeld poses. And that guy seems to be able to make his hands into metal so he can punch robots. So there's just everything happening all at once, at least 30 characters, a whole new thing of villains. There's political intrigue. There's other more sort of low-key villains. So these two in the left, one of them always looks like Kill Cat. I think it always is Kill Cat, but not Kill Cat to me. This guy in the sort of white and red there looks a lot like the Kill Cat in Savage Dragon. But two more excellent panels, just Die Hard doing a rather impossible maneuver because he's like just an amazing athlete and enhanced superhero. He can get away with it. And then he does his one punch with the perfect sort of ballerina on point feet there. So just more wonderful stuff. There's a little bit of the elements of the ultraviolence. Now, Rob is an associate of the Silverline comic books from California, which gave the Vigils their start. So Grips was published by this publisher, and so he's aware of hyperviolence. And one thing I wanted to mention in this issue was like, for a book called Youngblood, there's actually very little blood involved. And here we almost get a Miracle Man-esque sort of character. I think that's one of the leads who we'll get into a bit more down the track. We'll get some of that backstory, but he's a really brutal guy, kind of like Kid Miracle Man. He's just gone off the deep end. He's just basically exploded all of the blood in this guy's head. You can see it there. But like I said, for a comic called Youngblood, not much blood. So we need to up that. We need to up that in these reissues, Rob. Yeah. So here I've just written a note. Cyforce is coming across as a Miracle Man like character. And then when you say that Liefeld, just draws pinups, I think there's some good character work in these panels here. Leaning into this a bit more and maybe having less of the pinups would be what I would recommend from this issue. So the pros here, pros and cons. The pros are fantastic production and coloring, and the scripting, just using that old artwork, making it a bit less garish with the colors, although there's not enough blacks in there for me, but it is still pretty good. The ideas are absolutely excellent. So Rob Liefeld always can, draw something that looks cool. So one of the problems here is we've drawn an entire universe, the entire Extreme universe of cool looking characters, rather than an issue one of cool looking characters. So my con here would be, ideas are excellent, but the execution is a little bit lacking here. The designs are always great, even if impractical. I mean, Deadpool didn't stick around because, he had a practical looking outfit, and the two swords were sort of kosher as for how one would carry around two swords. Deadpool got off the ground because the look is cool. And yeah, one of the cons that I just mentioned, there's enough characters here for an entire universe, may also be a pro. So, everyone is going to gravitate to different designs. Everyone is going to gravitate to different characters. No one really knows what character will take off unless you're Keith Giffen and it's Lobo. And you kind of know that even this one note sort of character is just going to go bananas. So Rob here, he's giving us almost too much. And is that a problem? For the sake of the story, it is, but for the sake of just little kids trying to find cool things that they want to draw and they want to gravitate to, I don't think so. I think that the art is a little bit too posy here, too many sort of stock poses. When he breaks it down into these sort of panels going vertically down the page with these horizontal panels on the right here, he can do some fantastic cartooning, but it's not shown enough here. And the ideas that are there are a little bit diffuse. So we've got, 8, 9, 10 ideas that are enough to sustain, 10, 12 issues or, across 3 or 4 different books, enough ideas. However, in this issue one, they're just a bit diffuse. They're not really focused as much as they could be. I think it's the poor the poor application of plot. So we have a lot of plot threads, but we don't have a narrative drive. And I mean, Rob is an exciting sort of guy. He knows enough about comics. He's done sort of maybe 50 comics before he started this up. So I think it was just in the energy and the excitement of the moment and the fact that he actually could launch his late 80s book again after having all this professional experience. That, like, I'm not going to fault someone for their excitement. This is an exciting book. It's brilliant, but flawed. And if you get a chance, go and read it again with fresh eyes, especially this remixed version. I'm going to try and dig my old ones out of the long box. And I hope that this is successful and that Rob can manage to do something which isn't working for Marvel, which is not where he wants to be. So the other thing is, like I said, surprisingly little blood, a book called Youngblood. But I can even forgive this really dodgy looking crossbow because this just looks like, we've got 15, pages of a few characters that I like, and then 15 different pages of a few characters who I have no clue about in issue 1, and in issue 2, there's already a new one. So I need to go out there and get my next issue, which features this cool looking guy. I think he might be called Prophet if I'm keeping up. But fantastic. Do yourselves a favor. Just go and try one of these Youngbloods or dust off your old ones for nostalgia's sake. It is free comic book day. We are Tarnished Bronze. You can like, follow, and subscribe. And hopefully you enjoyed this fun trip down Rob Liefeld memory lane as much as I did. So we will see you in the next episode.